Hi, and welcome to today's episode of The Supporting Actor. I'm your host, Adrienne Streeter, so let's jump right into it. Hello, and thank you for joining our next episode of The Supporting Actor. I'm Adrienne Streeter, your host, and today we have a phenomenal friend of mine, Angela Duvall, who actually has a son that is on the autistic spectrum. So let's welcome Angela to the conversation of The Supporting Actor.
Good morning.
Good morning, Angela. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
I am doing well. Listen, we are here in Louisiana in mid-July and it is sweltering hot. Hot. I tell you, I'm melting. I don't know how it is for you in Charleston. How's the weather?
The same. Greetings from Charleston, also the surface of the sun.
I love it. Well, Angela, thank you so much for joining us and, bringing to life a little bit more context around autism for our audience and really just sharing your journey with Mathis and Magnus. I keep saying Magnus. Magnus is your son. But let's jump right into it. So tell us a little bit about Magnus.
Well, he's 11 now. He is
Okay.
definitely making a lot of headway, a lot more progress than we've seen in the past. And overall, not just school related, although this past year has been the best we've seen for him, growth, socially wise, academically wise. But overall, he's really coming into his own, and we're proud of him regardless. Yesterday was one of the first times I've seen him, I guess, do an average 11-year-old type thing. And that was the exterminator came and he answered the door and
Okay.
he let the man know that he was the only one here, which I guess wasn't the greatest. But he said he could spray outside. And then he immediately called me and let me know that he had spoke to him. He locked the door and that, dad was right down the road anyway. So he was coming right back. But he let me know. And I was like, this is something I've never seen. So those types of things are what make the pride of being a parent
Yep.
just the greatest, because there's days where it's super hard and most days are super hard, and then get these little slivers of something you feel like you've accomplished because you see them accomplishing so much. But yeah, so now that he's 11, we're trying to give him those freedoms. We're
Yeah.
seeing him come into his preteens, staying up until 2 a.m. Trying to slide certain things past his parents. It's the kind of growth that we'd waited for and we'd always hoped we'd see. So
Great. So now, how did you all determine, because he does have, or he's on the spectrum for autism, how did you all find out or learn that he was on the spectrum?
so around 3 or 4. So he was always very advanced with his physical, and we never saw anything when it came to eating, potty training, except for to defecate in the toilet. That was the only time that we would see anything. And they always said it was just a control thing. He went into pre-K. We knew that he was a little behind, again, academically speaking, but they went ahead and accepted him in, knowing that he was behind. They felt like it'd get him a little more push forward. But then unfortunately, he didn't make that progress like they had expected. They had mentioned getting him tested at the Medical University of South Carolina. They have a huge autism testing program there.
Mhm.
It's a 4-hour program. You sign up. It takes a while to get in, and then they just send them through these rigorous tests. So we signed up for that. After we spoke to he was the vice principal at the time. He kept saying that he was my son's advocate, and I do feel like he was just there for my son's best. We spoke to him, and we had also spoke to the psychiatrist through the school,
Mhm.
and they had suggested going to MUSC. So we went to them, and they said that if he was on at the time, he was 4.5, 5. They said if he was on the spectrum, that it was so minimal that they didn't feel like it was going to be a problem for him. So
Okay.
just keep raising him the way we had been, and eventually the gap will close. But then unfortunately that growth didn't happen. So we spoke to the other psychiatrist, or the newest psychiatrist, I guess I should say, and his new resource teacher at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And they both suggested, if MUSC is telling you this and they're saying he's at least on the spectrum, let's go ahead and get him an IEP. Let's get him set up where he's going to get these resources, and maybe that gap will close quicker. And then again, that didn't really happen.
Oh, wow.
But I feel now maybe he just wasn't in the right place for him.
Okay.
There's a lot of understanding when it comes to how to talk to or teach somebody that doesn't learn the same as yourself.
Yep.
And it comes with a lot of learning that you might not necessarily get one-on-one. Or if you don't have a sibling or a family member, most kids shy away from other children that have those special needs and those difficulties socializing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just something that I feel is rarely understood.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so and again, we didn't understand it until,
Right.
our own son, and then we had to understand what autism was.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
sorry, go ahead.
No, no, no. Go ahead, because I want to hear more.
Okay, so that was his first elementary school. And then we decided to move. Now, we moved out of one county into another, and we moved a good 45 minutes out where we used to live.
Okay.
I was really afraid of that just because I wasn't familiar with this school system out here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we were zoned for only one elementary school, and that was not the school that most of the children in this neighborhood attend. And it just
Okay.
happened to be where we are. We're so far in the back of the neighborhood that we're going to this particular elementary.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it ended up being the best thing that could have ever
Really?
happened. It honestly could have. They immediately realized what resources that he was lacking in and needed. They set him up. He was in what was called a self-contained room, and he'll continue that in his middle school.
Okay.
Um, Again, as a parent, I was very much nervous for what that meant. I was afraid that meant he would be closed off from, neurotypical children where he could learn things that he might not. Um, I didn't realize that the size of the class was 15 to 20 children. I thought he would just be in, with 2 or 3 kids, and what if he doesn't like them?
Yes.
So I was really afraid. But it ended up being completely the opposite. The children in there became his friends. The teacher had such a great relationship with him that over the summer they email. And that's a huge thing because he doesn't want to communicate other than like a face-to-face.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then we know because of this IEP that they've specially made for him and have added all these extra things for him, we know going into middle school that
Mm-hmm.
somebody that's never met our son will know exactly what makes Magnus thrive, what makes Magnus want to be there.
Yeah.
Like his just to be engaged is the biggest thing. This is the first year he's actually been sad to have summer come, know
Wow.
that he's not coming back to that school. He was sad to see friends leave, and he's in 5th grade. This is something that you don't want to see your child get upset about, but at the
Right.
same time, you want to see them go through the same things that other kids do.
Yes.
So it was really refreshing for him this year, and it took a lot of hard work to get there. So I'm really proud of him.
So then, as a mom, tell us, how did you, and maybe even with your husband, how did you all push through, particularly the fear that you're talking about? How did you push through that fear to say, okay, I'm going to allow him to be in a self-contained room, even though I don't really know what that means? How did you push through that?
So originally, I was very adamant that he was not going to be in that room. And then I kind of took a pause and realized There's people that go to school for this. They
Mm,
might have a family member. They might have a child with special needs. They could possibly understand this on the same plane as me or even more so. Um, I realize that you can humble yourself and realize that there are people that know more, they know better, and they might actually want the same for your child that you do. And just taking that pause and not being bigger than the other guy, I think is the best. I reached out to his resource teacher, and the woman that we had spoke to, I guess, is kind of a guidance counselor that places children where they need to be, I think is the
okay.
way to put it. So we spoke to her, and she explained in very good detail what it was, and that definitely quelled a lot of the anxieties of him going in.
Yep.
And then especially his first week coming, it was such an instant change. We realized it was the right thing to do. He'd come home, he's happy, he's smiling, he's airy, he's got a lot more confidence now.
Good.
um, it's hard to see your child be anxious in the world,
Yeah.
so that was a relief.
So now you have another child, and Magnus has a sibling. What has been or are some challenges in having one child on the spectrum and the other not on the spectrum?
So our first child being autistic, and that was a whole new world for us. We had
Hmm.
to learn how to parent differently than books originally told us to, or what we had learned from our own families. And then once you've learned all of that, you get to have a second child who does not learn that way. So there are times where I can overlap direction to both kids, but it's rare. Mostly I have to address my son. I'll have to look at him in the face and tell him what I'm expecting of him. And if I send them off to do something together, I honestly think that my daughter Minta, she's 7, I think that she's going to know more socially what to do. If something makes her uncomfortable, she's going to leave. Magnus is very aloof when it comes to that. So I again fear for that. But yeah, just learning how to. Well, they're also individuals, so learning how to teach them differently than we've been taught or what we've learned to teach, and then also what works best for them, because they are very, very different. They are night and day.
Listen, we have two girls and they
Oh,
are night and day completely. So I understand. I
it's
get it.
refreshing.
We have one that is very I'm not really sure how to describe her. She's very smart and she has a level of common sense that you wouldn't think a 6-year old should have. And it's almost off putting for me when she says something that's so truthfully practical that I'm embarrassed that I didn't think the way she thinks. But yes, so I get that. So now you all moved from one county to another county.
Yes.
You purchased a home in this subdivision or this community, and you all had to go to this other school. And that's been one of a blessing in disguise almost. What would you say has been outside of education part of the biggest challenge in raising a child with autism? And I'll give example. Well, no, I won't give example. I'll let you answer, and then I'll just kind of ping in when I can.
Um, for me, I assume many parents probably empathize with this. For me, you can't always be there to protect your child, to
Mm,
guide them, especially as they age. You want to create distance so that they can create more of an identity and independence. And when it comes to that with my son, there is a fear that he will be taken advantage of in
mm,
life.
mm.
Not everybody has the greatest intentions, and not everybody has patience for somebody that might need a little more time. And I do feel That for me is the biggest thing, whether it be he goes to middle school and he gets bullied for being different.
Mm,
As he ages, he starts working and maybe somebody's just mean to him because they can be. And I don't feel like he understands how really to identify those feelings, because everything, he doesn't understand sarcasm really. So it's he always thinks you're kind of joking with him and stuff. So you always, well, I always worry about that one thing. I want
mhm.
him to understand not everybody's good, not everybody's bad, but you need to be able to define those things for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. And I think that all parents are challenged with that at some level, whether the child is on the spectrum or not. But I think
Yeah.
when they're on the spectrum, and that is just how their brain processes information, it's a little bit more of a anxiety in you as a parent of, oh my god, is this really? So I get that, I understand
Yeah.
that. What resources and or experiences have you found beneficial that you would like to potentially share with our audience that will help them on their journey?
So I really looked for, it's really hard to find mom friends that are
Hmm.
similar to you, and then you have to take in the account that your children might not be the same age.
Hmm.
And so all of those things coupled, if you then try to find somebody that fits that criteria and also is a parent to a special needs child, it
Yes.
definitely narrows your selection. So I have literally just I meet people and I
Hmm.
ask about their kids, and then from there I want to know more. I have a friend whose son is also special needs. He's older. He'll be 16 in November.
Okay.
And I would say he's a little deeper on the spectrum, I guess is a way to
Okay.
put that. So he might be more dependent on her as he ages and matures. Um, but I go to her for everything because although you do have to teach your children a little differently than your others, the fact
Yes.
is that she doesn't. She makes those adjustments where they're really necessary. But otherwise, she does not treat him any different than her other son, who is
Oh wow.
neurotypical. And yeah, so she's in the same situation. Her kids are a little bit older, so her youngest is 11, and then her oldest is 16. So we
Okay.
do have that gap. But otherwise, that way I'm able to learn. I'm able to what to expect with Magnus as he gets older. Again, they might be a little different in experiences,
Hmm.
but it gives me an idea of
Yes.
what a maturing autistic 16-year-old may or may not be like. You still have to give them space. They still need to have that growth, and so
I love it. I know one of the things that most parents who find themselves in a situation where they have a child that either was born with a special need or disability or developed one later in life, they have literally become research professionals, something that they
yeah.
probably did not go to school for, whether it's researching the condition and the resources. And you find out a lot of the gaps that talking to other parents that may or may not be in your community, in regards to whatever condition your child may or may not have, depending on your situation. With that being said, what changes or what would you like to see, um, to be improved in the autistic community to help support other families?
So the one thing one of the examples I have is we love to go to those special needs nights at the water park or the trampoline park. If we had more inclusivity when it comes to that with wherever, if more businesses would do that, because honestly, when my son was younger, he's a little bit better about it now, but when he was younger, you could not get him in a place that was dark with lights strobing and music going. We
Mm.
had his birthday there big mistake, because he wanted it and we didn't think anything of it. But then when it came time, you have music, you have lights, then you have a bunch of people singing happy birthday at you, and then they like blow whistles and shoot off a little,
Wow.
confetti thing. So it gets quite loud in there, and he actually would run and hide. Um, he's better about it now again, but if we just had more places where they would, make those accommodations by turning off the lights or the music, just a couple hours on that one day a month, it would
Yeah.
really help everybody out.
I love that idea. I love that Ari Elizabeth gym, where she goes for gymnastics, they specialize in children who have a learning disability, not learning, a disability or special need from autism. And they do have monthly support groups. And we're actually going to have the owner of that gym on talking about how she decided to pivot her business to focus on that. And so I think that's a great idea, parents being able to know I can take my child safely to the skating rink or bowling or to the trampoline jump park. And I know that this environment is created safe for my child, whether they are sensitive to lights, sensitive to sound, sensitive to whatever. I think that's an awesome, awesome idea, and I love it.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
go
sorry, go
ahead.
ahead. Oh, I was wondering. So it's just little things. Some parents get to drop their kids off, and they get to go do like a shut-in, lock-in, or whatever you call it, and that would just be such an experience. But then you wonder, is my child going to wander away? Is anybody going to understand that he might need a little more redirection or a little more guidance? He won't be able to do those things on his own, and so you worry as a parent, and if you can't be there, then your kid doesn't go, and then they miss out on those experiences.
Yeah. And I think that's important, that no matter what your child was born with or developed, that we as parents are their biggest advocate. And it sounds like you and your husband and Minta, your youngest, have been very supportive of your oldest and really just making sure that we and your community has been advocates for him. So I want to thank you, Angela, for joining us today and just really coming on and sharing your story. So we appreciate you. We wish you and your family nothing but the best. We will have other families on, so make sure that if your child is on the spectrum, that you stay plugged in with us, subscribe to our channel, click that like button so that when we have other parents who are talking about their children that's also on the spectrum, no matter where they are, those resources will be available to you. So thank you so much for joining. I
Perfect. Thank
appreciate it.
you.
And I love the conversation. So
Oh, I miss you
much
so
love
much.
to you and this.
Please send the love to the babies and to Doug. I miss y'all so much. I'll have to make a trip down to the Gulf.
Listen, mi casa, su casa.
Oh, I'm gonna quit my job.
Well, mi casa, su casa for a short period of time.
I'll have to find accommodations near.
Well, Angela, thank you so much, and I
Thank
appreciate it.
you.
And you have an awesome, awesome weekend.
You as well. Thank you. We're actually headed to the in-laws to head to Florida, take my kids down to go see their grandma.
I love it, love it.
Yeah.
Family time, so important.
Yes.
Well, you
Love
all
it.
travel safely.
Thank you so much. Y'all are great. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you all so much for joining. Again, don't forget to subscribe and like the channel so that when we do upload new content, you will be notified. We're excited about next week's guest. We have a family that will be joining us to talk about their son and how he was born with a heart defect, and literally moments after birth he was in the OR for open heart surgery. So we will have that family on. We're excited about that conversation. Can't wait for you all to hear not only their story and journey, but also to hear about the resources that are available to you as a community if your son or daughter has any type of heart disease. Well, thank you all so much for joining. We appreciate you, and we will see you on the next episode. Take care.